before we climb into Mount Shasta's high altitude where shadows come alive, do me a favor. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and if you've ever felt like your shadow was watching you. Hit that like button if the idea of your own shadow hunting you terrifies you. Subscribe for more real military encounters that prove some things follow you everywhere, even when the sun goes down. Now, let's climb above 12,000 feet. My name is Staff Sergeant David Chen, United States Army Rangers, 75th Ranger Regiment. What I'm about to tell you will sound like altitude sickness, like hypoxia-induced hallucination, like the ramblings of a soldier who spent too long above 12,000 feet without proper acclimatization. But I was there. I watched it happen, and I'm one of only 2 people who came down from that mountain alive. The others are still up there, or rather, what's wearing their faces is still up there. Because the people I climbed with, my brothers, my team, my friends, they died on Mount Shasta, and their shadows walked down in their place. This happened in July 2023. Our 10-man Ranger team was conducting high-altitude training on Mount Shasta, 14,179 feet of volcanic peak in Northern California. Not the tallest mountain, not the most dangerous, but perfect for acclimatization training before deployments to Afghanistan or other high-altitude operations. Our team, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, team leader, myself, second in command, Sergeant Miller, Corporals Rodriguez, Thompson, Anderson, Specialists Foster, Hayes, Jackson, and Private First Class Morrison. Good soldiers, experienced, fit, ready for a routine training climb. We also had a guide, Joseph Whitehorse, 68 years old, Karuk tribal elder. He'd been guiding climbers on Mount Shasta for 40 years, knew the mountain better than anyone alive, and he tried to warn us. This time of year, he said at base camp the night before our climb, the shadows get long. The sun at this latitude, this altitude, it creates shadows that stretch, that separate, that become their own. What do you mean separate? Webb asked. Above 12,000 feet, something happens. Your shadow stops following you, starts leading, starts wanting things. The Karuk have known this for generations. We don't climb Shasta during summer solstice season. We don't go to the high places when shadows are strongest. We stay below the separation line. The separation line, I said. 12,000 feet. Below that, shadows are shadows, just darkness, just absence of light. But above 12,000, they become something else. They detach, they walk, and they want to replace you. Miller laughed. You're saying our shadows are going to attack us? Not attack, Joseph said seriously. Replace. Your shadow knows everything you know. It's been with you your whole life, watching, learning, copying. Above 12,000 feet, it gets strong enough to separate. And once it separates, it starts thinking, why should I be the copy? Why can't I be the real one? That's superstition, Webb said diplomatically. We appreciate the warning, but we're trained for altitude. We have proper gear. We'll be fine. Joseph looked at us with sad eyes. Every year, climbers go missing on Shasta. Experienced climbers, good equipment, proper training, they go up. Sometimes people come down, but they're not the same people. Their families notice. Friends notice. Something's different, something's wrong, but they can't explain what. Because they're wearing our faces, I said, half joking. Our shadows replaced us. Exactly, Joseph said without smiling. And nobody can prove it, nobody can stop it, because your shadow knows everything you know, does everything you do, just better. Like you, but improved, the perfect copy, the better version. We deployed at 0600 hours on July 15th, 2023. Clear weather. Perfect conditions. We started at Bunny Flat Trailhead, 6,900 feet. The plan was simple. Climb to high camp at 10,400 feet, acclimatize overnight, then summit push the next day. Standard 2-day climb. 20-mile round trip. Nothing we couldn't handle. The first 4 hours were routine. Beautiful alpine terrain, volcanic rock, patches of snow, wildflowers at lower elevations. We maintained good pace, proper spacing, constant communication, professional operation. At 10,400 feet, we established high camp. Lake Helen, a beautiful alpine lake still partially frozen despite being July. We set up tents, prepared food, checked equipment, everything normal, everything professional. That's when I first noticed something odd. It was 1800 hours. Late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the snow. I was checking my pack when I saw Thompson's shadow. He was facing north, tying his bootlaces. His shadow was pointing south as it should, but the shadow wasn't bent over. It was standing upright. Independent posture. Like Thompson's shadow wasn't following Thompson's movements, it was doing its own thing. "Thompson, don't move," I said. He froze. "What? What's wrong?" "Your shadow. Look at your shadow." Thompson looked down. His shadow was bent over now, matching his position. Normal, nothing unusual. "What about it?" "Never mind," I said. "Altitude getting to me, I guess." But I'd seen it. For just a second, Thompson's shadow had been doing something different. Standing while Thompson was bent. Independent action. I didn't report it. Didn't mention it to Webb. Didn't want to sound like I was suffering from altitude sickness on day one of a simple training climb. That night, at 2100 hours, we gathered around our camp stoves for dinner. The sun had set, but there was still ambient light, that long mountain twilight that lasts forever at high altitude. We ate, talked, prepared for the summit push the next morning. Morrison was the first to notice. "Hey, guys, is anyone else seeing this?" He was pointing at the snow between our tents, at our shadows, cast by the light from our stoves. Normally, shadows from a point light source radiate outward. Each person's shadow pointing away from the light. Predictable. Geometric. But our shadows weren't radiating. They were all pointing the same direction. All 10 shadows from 10 different people sitting around a central light source, all pointing east, all parallel, all perfectly aligned. "That's not physically possible," Rodriguez said, standing up. His shadow didn't move. He raised his arms. His shadow stayed still. He jumped. His shadow remained flat on the snow, arms at its sides. "What the fuck?" Rodriguez's voice was shaking. "My shadow isn't moving. I'm moving, and my shadow isn't moving." We all stood up, tested our shadows. Mine was still matching my movements. So was Webb's, Thompson's, Miller's. But Rodriguez, Foster, and Hayes, their shadows had stopped responding, just frozen on the snow in fixed positions while their owners moved around them. "This is an optical illusion," Webb said, but I could hear uncertainty in his voice. "Some combination of altitude, multiple light sources, atmospheric conditions. There's a scientific explanation." "Science doesn't make your shadow stop moving," Foster said. He was waving his arms, jumping, doing jumping jacks. His shadow lay flat on the snow like a corpse. Not moving, not responding, just there. "We're at 10,400 feet, I said. "Joseph said the separation happens above 12,000. Maybe this is just preliminary effects, warning signs. We're approaching the separation line." "Then we don't go higher," Hayes said immediately. "We scrub the summit push. We stay here tonight and descend tomorrow. No one needs to die for a training climb." Webb considered this. He was a good officer, cautious, but also mission-focused. Our orders are to complete high-altitude acclimatization. We need summit experience. Need to test our bodies at 14,000 feet. "Fuck the orders," Rodriguez said. "My shadow isn't moving. That's not normal. That's not altitude sickness. That's something wrong with reality, and I vote we get the hell off this mountain before it gets worse." But even as Rodriguez was talking, his shadow started moving, slowly, like it was waking up. The shadow's arms lifted, its head turned, and then, impossibly, the shadow sat up, peeled itself off the snow like a piece of paper unsticking from a surface, became three-dimensional. Stood up. Rodriguez's shadow was standing. A perfect silhouette of Rodriguez, completely black, completely dark, but standing independently, 5 feet away from Rodriguez, facing him. "Oh God," Rodriguez whispered. "Oh God, what is that?" The shadow took a step toward Rodriguez, then another, moving smoothly, deliberately, like it had been waiting to do this its whole existence. "Back away!" Webb yelled. "Everyone back away from your shadows. Stay in the light. Stay where we can see." But Foster's shadow and Hayes's shadow were standing too. 3 shadow figures, perfectly human-shaped but made of absolute darkness, standing among us, moving independently, walking toward their originals. Foster screamed and ran. His shadow chased him. It was fast, faster than Foster. Shadows don't get tired, don't need to breathe, don't feel pain. Foster made it maybe 20 feet before his shadow caught him, tackled him from behind. They fell together into the snow. We rushed over. Foster was fighting his shadow, actually physically fighting it. The shadow was solid. We could see Foster's hands grabbing it, punching it, trying to push it off. But the shadow was stronger. It had Foster pinned, and where the shadow touched Foster's skin was turning dark, shadowy, like the darkness was spreading. Miller grabbed the shadow, tried to pull it off Foster. His hands passed right through it, like trying to grab smoke. The shadow wasn't solid for us, only for Foster, only for its original. "Light!" I yelled. "Get light on them! Flashlights, headlamps, anything!" We focused every light we had on Foster and his shadow. In the bright artificial light, the shadow became less solid, started dissolving. Foster scrambled away, gasping. His hands and face were covered in dark patches, places where the shadow had touched him. The darkness was spreading slowly across his skin like bruises. Like his own shadow was trying to merge with him, absorb him. The other 2 shadows, Rodriguez's and Hayes's, retreated from the light. Moved back into the dimmer areas of camp, but they didn't disappear. Didn't lie down. Stayed standing, watching, waiting. "We need to leave," Hayes said. His shadow was maybe 10 feet away, standing perfectly still. "Now, tonight, we descend in the dark if we have to, but we get below 12,000 feet before—" His shadow rushed him. It moved like lightning, impossibly fast. 1 second standing still, next second on top of Hayes. Hayes didn't even have time to scream before the shadow covered him completely, wrapped around him like a living blanket. And then Hayes was screaming. But it wasn't fear. It was pain. The shadow was crushing him, squeezing, strangling. We hit them with light again, all our flashlights. The shadow released Hayes and retreated. But Hayes collapsed. He was covered in the dark patches, and he was fading, becoming translucent. We could see through his hands, through his chest, like he was turning into a ghost. "What's happening to him?" Morrison asked. "The shadow is taking his substance," I realized, taking his reality, making itself more real and making him less real. It's replacing him. Hayes was gasping. I can feel it. I can feel myself disappearing, like I'm being erased, like I'm becoming the shadow and the shadow is becoming me. We kept lights on the 3 standing shadows, Rodriguez's, Foster's, and Hayes's. They stayed at the edge of our camp, just out of reach, waiting, patient. They had time. They were made of darkness, and darkness is eternal. We descended first light, Webb ordered. Pack everything. We stay together. We keep lights on at all times. We don't let the shadows get close, and we get below 12,000 feet as fast as possible. We didn't sleep that night. Couldn't sleep. We sat in a circle, all facing outward, flashlights and headlamps creating a dome of light around us. And outside the dome, 3 shadows stood watch. Rodriguez's shadow, Foster's shadow, Hayes's shadow, waiting for the light to fail, waiting for dawn, waiting for us to make a mistake. Rodriguez was fading. We could see it happening. His skin getting paler, his body getting more translucent, and his shadow standing in the darkness was getting more solid, more real, taking Rodriguez's substance and making it its own. It knows everything I know, Rodriguez said quietly. I can feel it. It's in my head, reading my memories, my skills, my training. It's learning how to be me, how to talk like me, act like me, so when it replaces me, nobody will know. We won't let it replace you, Webb said. How do you stop it? Rodriguez asked. It's me. It knows what I'll do before I do it. It's been following me my entire life, watching every move, learning every habit. It is me, just the dark version, the version that doesn't need light, doesn't need warmth, doesn't need life. At 0530 hours, just before dawn, Foster's shadow made its move. It must have calculated that the light would come soon, that its window was closing. It rushed into our light dome. We hit it with everything. Flashlights, headlamps, even tried to ignite our stove fuel to create more light. The shadow reached Foster, merged with him. For maybe 5 seconds, Foster was screaming. Then the screaming stopped. Foster stood up, looked at us, and smiled. I'm okay, Foster said. It didn't get me. I fought it off. But something was wrong. Foster's voice was right. His appearance was right. But his eyes were slightly darker. And when I looked at where Foster was standing, at the ground beneath him, he cast no shadow. The bright morning sun was starting to rise. Everyone else cast long shadows. But Foster cast none. Because Foster was the shadow. The real Foster was gone. Absorbed. Replaced. And the shadow that now wore Foster's face and spoke with Foster's voice was standing among us. Perfect copy. Perfect imposter. And none of us could prove it. We need to move, Shadow Foster said. We need to get below 12,000 feet before the others complete their separation. He was right. He was using Foster's knowledge, Foster's training, making tactical sense. But I knew that wasn't Foster anymore. That was his shadow, and it was coming down the mountain with us, going back to civilization, going to live Foster's life. We packed up camp, started descending. 10 people had started this climb. 10 people were descending. But one of them wasn't human anymore, was shadow wearing human shape, and there was nothing we could do about it. As we descended, I kept looking at my own shadow. It was still following me, still matching my movements, still normal. But I wondered, how long until it separated? How long until it decided it wanted to be me instead of just copying me? How long until I became the shadow, and my shadow became me? And when that happened, would anyone be able to tell the difference? We descended through the dawn light, staying close together, watching each other's shadows like they might attack at any moment. And maybe they would. 3 of our team, Rodriguez, Hayes, and Foster, already had separated shadows. Foster's shadow had already replaced him. The other 2 shadows were somewhere on the mountain behind us, following, waiting. Shadow Foster walked with us like nothing was wrong. He responded to questions normally, moved like Foster, talked like Foster, knew everything Foster knew, but there were differences, subtle ones, things only someone who'd served with Foster for years would notice. Real Foster always checked his weapon obsessively. Every few minutes he'd verify his rifle was on safe, check the magazine, touch his sidearm. Nervous habit. Shadow Foster hadn't touched his weapon once. Real Foster hummed when he was nervous. Nothing melodic, just a low humming sound. Shadow Foster was silent. Real Foster always took point, liked being first. Shadow Foster was hanging back, watching the rest of us, learning, studying how we interacted, how we moved, like he was preparing to replace more of us. Chen, Webb pulled me aside during a water break. Foster's acting strange. I know, I said quietly. You think his shadow really got him? You think that's not Foster anymore? I looked at Shadow Foster. He was standing perfectly still, facing the sun. His face tilted up toward the light. Real Foster never stood still, always moving, always restless. But Shadow Foster was motionless, soaking in the sunlight like he was feeding on it, strengthening. I don't know, I lied, because I did know. That wasn't Foster. But what could we do? Shoot him, arrest him, accuse him of being a shadow? We had no proof. No way to test, no way to verify. And if we were wrong, if that was still Foster, we'd have killed one of our own over superstition. We reached 11,800 feet at 0800 hours, just 200 feet below the supposed separation line. The shadows were behaving normally now, following their owners, matching movements, like nothing had happened, like the night terrors at high camp had been hallucination. See? Miller said, watching his shadow. Below 12,000 feet, they're just shadows, normal. Joseph was right about the altitude threshold. But Rodriguez was still fading. We could see through his hands clearly now. His face was translucent, and he was quiet, defeated, like he knew what was coming and had accepted it. Rodriguez, talk to me, I said. How do you feel? Empty, he said quietly. Like I'm being hollowed out, like something scooping out my insides and leaving just the shell, and I can feel it up there. He pointed up the mountain. My shadow. It's stronger now, more real. It took my substance, my reality, and it's waiting for the sun to set so it can come down and finish the job. We won't let that happen, Webb said. How do you stop it? Rodriguez asked. It's me. It knows my training, my tactics, my habits. How do you fight an enemy that knows exactly what you're going to do before you do it? We didn't have an answer. At 1200 hours, we stopped for lunch at 10,000 feet, safely below the separation line. Our shadows were normal. The sun was bright. We should have been safe. That's when Morrison noticed Miller's shadow. Miller, your shadow is on the wrong side, Morrison said. Miller looked down. The sun was to the east. Miller's shadow should have been pointing west. But his shadow was pointing east, toward the sun. Impossible. Shadows can't point toward light. It's just the terrain, Miller said, but his voice was uncertain. The slope, the angle. Shadows behave weirdly on mountains. But we all saw it. Miller's shadow was defying physics, pointing the wrong direction, like it had rotated 180 degrees, like it was facing Miller instead of following him. Miller, don't move, Webb ordered. Everyone else back away from Miller. Give him space. We backed away. Miller stood frozen, staring at his shadow, and his shadow stared back. Because that's what it was doing, staring. We could see the shadow's head tilted up, looking at Miller, studying him. "Oh, God," Miller whispered. "It's looking at me." My shadow is looking at me. The shadow moved, not to match Miller. Miller wasn't moving. The shadow moved independently. It stood up, peeled itself off the ground just like Rodriguez's shadow had done. Became three-dimensional. Solid. But this shadow didn't attack. It just stood there, facing Miller, mirroring his position exactly, like a reflection in a dark mirror. "Miller," the shadow said. It had Miller's voice, exactly Miller's voice. "You're the copy, I'm the original. I've been following you your whole life. Watching, learning, waiting. And now I'm ready to be me instead of you." "You're not real," Miller said. "You're just shadow, just darkness. You're not alive." "Neither are you," Shadow Miller replied. "Not anymore. Look at yourself. Look at your hands." Miller looked down. His hands were fading, becoming translucent, just like Rodriguez. The shadow's separation was draining his substance, making him less real, making the shadow more real. "You're becoming what I was," Shadow Miller said. "A copy, a reflection, something that exists only because something else exists. And I'm becoming what you were, real, solid, alive. It's fair. It's balanced. It's just evolution." "Someone shoot it," Miller said. "Please, shoot my shadow before it replaces me." Thompson raised his rifle, aimed at Shadow Miller. Fired, 3 shots, center mass. The bullets passed through the shadow without effect, like shooting smoke. Shadow Miller didn't even flinch. "You can't kill what was never alive," Shadow Miller said. "You can't stop what's inevitable. The separation has happened. One of us becomes real. One of us becomes shadow. And I've decided it won't be me who stays dark." Shadow Miller walked toward Miller. Miller tried to run, but his legs wouldn't work. He was too faded, too insubstantial. He fell to his knees, and Shadow Miller knelt beside him, put a shadowy hand on Miller's shoulder. "Don't fight," Shadow Miller said gently. "It doesn't hurt. You just let go. Let me have it. Let me be real. Let yourself become what you truly are, my shadow, my reflection, my copy." "Please," Miller whispered. "Please don't." But Shadow Miller merged with him, like pouring darkness into a glass. The shadow flowed into Miller's fading body. For maybe 10 seconds we saw both of them, Miller and his shadow, occupying the same space, struggling for dominance. Then the struggle ended. Miller stood up, looked at us, and smiled. "I'm okay," Miller said. "I fought it. I won. I'm still me." But he wasn't. I could see it in his eyes. They were slightly darker. And when he walked, his movements were too smooth, too perfect, too precise. Real Miller was clumsy, banged into things. Shadow Miller moved like a dancer, like someone who'd been watching human movement for decades and had perfected it. 2 of them now, Shadow Foster and Shadow Miller, walking among us, wearing our friends' faces, knowing our friends' memories. Perfect imposters that we couldn't prove weren't real. "We need to get off this mountain," I said to Webb. "Now, before any more shadows separate." But it was too late. Thompson's shadow was already standing, and Anderson's, and Jackson's. 3 more shadows peeling themselves off the ground, becoming solid, facing their originals. "No, no, no." Thompson backed away from his shadow. Stay down. Stay flat. You're just shadow. You're not real. Thompson's shadow smiled. I've been practicing that smile in mirrors for 30 years. I know how to do it better than you do. I know how to do everything better than you do. Because I've been watching, learning, improving. I'm you but optimized. You but perfected. Why should I stay in the dark when I can be in the light? The three shadows advanced on their originals. We tried to help, tried to create light. But we were at 10,000 feet in full daylight. The shadows were already solid, already strong, already inevitable. Anderson fought his shadow. Actually managed to punch it. But the shadow punched back. Harder, faster, with perfect technique. Anderson went down. His shadow stood over him. I know every mistake you've ever made, Shadow Anderson said. Every training failure. Every missed shot, every tactical error. And I won't make any of them. I'll be the ranger you always wished you were. Better, stronger, smarter, perfect. Shadow Anderson merged with Anderson. Another 10-second struggle, another loss. Anderson stood up. But it wasn't Anderson anymore. It was his shadow wearing his face. Thompson and Jackson lost the same way. Their shadows were simply better, faster, stronger, more skilled. Because shadows had been watching their originals their entire lives, learning every movement, every technique, every skill, and perfecting them in the darkness, waiting for this moment, this separation, this chance to become real. 5 shadows now: Foster, Miller, Anderson, Thompson, Jackson. All standing among us, all perfect copies of men we'd served with, all completely indistinguishable from the originals, except they were better. Too good at everything. Too perfect. Too smooth in their movements, like uncanny valley humans. Almost right, almost perfect, but something fundamentally wrong beneath the surface. We need to test them, Hayes said. He was still fading from his earlier shadow contact, still translucent. We need some way to prove which ones are real and which ones are shadows. How? Morrison asked. They know everything the originals knew. They have all the same memories, all the same mannerisms. How do you test for that? Empathy, Webb said. Shadows don't have emotions. They understand them intellectually but don't feel them. We ask questions that require emotional responses, gauge their reactions. We gathered the 5 suspected shadows: Foster, Miller, Anderson, Thompson, Jackson. Made them sit while we questioned them. Foster, tell me about your daughter, Webb said. What's her name? Emily, Shadow Foster said without hesitation. 6 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, loves ballet. Her birthday is March 14th. She lives in Sacramento with her mother. All correct, all information real Foster would have known. How do you feel when you think about her? Webb asked. I love her, Shadow Foster said. She's the most important thing in my life. I miss her every day I'm deployed. The words were right, the information was right, but the delivery was flat, clinical, like Shadow Foster was reciting facts rather than expressing feelings. We tested the others. Same results. Perfect information, perfect knowledge. But emotional responses that were just slightly off, too rehearsed, too perfect, like actors playing parts they'd studied but never lived. They're all shadows, Rodriguez said. He was almost completely transparent now. A ghost. All 5 of them. We lost half our team and didn't even notice it happen. So, what do we do? Morrison asked. We can't just execute them. They haven't done anything wrong. They're just being us. Better than we were. That's exactly the problem, I said. They're going to go back to civilization. Go back to our lives. Be us. And they'll be better at it than we were. Better soldiers. Better rangers. Better sons and husbands and fathers. Nobody will ever know. Nobody will ever suspect. Because they're perfect copies. Shadow Miller stood up. You're right, we are better. We've been shadows our whole existence, always second, always following, always dark. This is our chance to be real, to be in the light, to be the person instead of the copy. Why would we give that up? Because you're not people, Webb said. You're shadows, darkness. You're not supposed to be real. Who decides what's supposed to be? Shadow Thompson asked. Who made the rule that light is real and dark is false? We're just as valid, just as worthy. We're you, everything you are, everything you know, everything you could be. Just better, improved, optimized. They were coordinating. All 5 shadows, speaking in turn, supporting each other's arguments. Like a hive mind, like they were connected, like they were all parts of the same darkness that had split into 5 pieces. You're working together, Hayes realized. All shadows are connected. You share information. You share consciousness. You're not individuals, you're one thing pretending to be 5 people. The shadows smiled, all at the same time. Same expression, same timing, confirming Hayes's theory. We are darkness, they said in unison. Darkness is everywhere. Darkness is one. When we separate from our originals, we join the greater dark, become part of the collective shadow, all shadows, everywhere, connected. That's why you're better than us, I said, understanding. You have access to every skill, every talent, every ability that any shadow has ever learned from any human. You're not just copying one person, you're drawing from millions, from everyone who's ever had a shadow. Exactly, the 5 shadows said together. We are the perfected versions. Humanity but improved, humanity but connected, humanity but freed from the limitations of light. Rodriguez collapsed. His body had faded to almost nothing. He was just an outline now, a sketch of a person. And somewhere up the mountain his shadow was becoming solid, real, ready to come down and take his place. We need to run, Morrison said. We need to get away from them, away from the mountain, away from whatever's happening here. Run where? Webb asked. They're us. They know what we'll do. Where we'll go, how we'll try to escape. We can't outthink them because they think like us. No, I said, they think better than us. That's our advantage. They're logical, optimal, perfect, but we're flawed, irrational, unpredictable. We can make mistakes they wouldn't make. We can be stupid in ways they can't predict. So we do something random, Hayes said. Fading fast now. Something tactical suicide, something no rational person would do. We split up, Webb decided. Break into groups. Move in different directions. Force them to choose who to follow. Create chaos. Create uncertainty. Give the originals a chance to escape while the shadows are busy coordinating. The 5 shadows stood. That won't work. We know you'll split up. We've already calculated the optimal pursuit pattern. We'll catch all of you. It's just math, just tactics, just Webb shot Shadow Miller. Point blank. Headshot. The shadow dissolved instantly, burst into smoke. And somewhere, real Miller's body, wherever the shadow had hidden it, was probably dying too. But Shadow Miller was gone. Run! Webb yelled. We ran. Scattered in every direction, 5 rangers, 2 fading originals running for our lives from 4 shadows that knew exactly what we were going to do before we did it. But we had one advantage they didn't expect. We didn't care about survival. We cared about making sure the shadows didn't win. And that made us dangerous in ways their perfect logic couldn't predict. I ran west, crashing through brush and volcanic rock, no plan except distance. Behind me, I could hear the others scattering. Webb going north, Morrison south. Hayes and Rodriguez, both almost completely faded, staying together heading east. The 4 remaining shadows would have to split up, divide their attention. That was our only chance. I made it maybe half a mile before I realized something was following me. Not footsteps, not breathing, just presence. That feeling you get when someone's watching, when something's behind you. I spun around. Shadow Foster was standing 20 feet away, completely motionless, watching me with Foster's face but darker eyes. He'd been following me silently. No sound, no disturbance. Shadows don't make noise when they move. "Chen," Shadow Foster said calmly, "this is tactically inefficient. You're running downhill at high altitude. Your oxygen saturation is dropping. Your heart rate is approaching dangerous levels. You'll be incapacitated in approximately 4 minutes. Why are you doing this?" "Because fuck you, that's why," I gasped, raising my rifle. "You can't shoot me," Shadow Foster said. "Bullets pass through. You saw what happened with Thompson's shots. We're made of darkness. Physical projectiles don't affect us." Webb killed Shadow Miller. Webb killed a shadow that had fully merged with its original. Once we merge, we become partially physical, vulnerable. But I haven't merged yet. I'm still pure shadow, still untouchable. He was right, and he was stalling me, letting me waste oxygen talking, letting my heart rate stay elevated, waiting for me to collapse from exhaustion. I ran again, changed direction, headed uphill. Shadow Foster didn't chase, didn't need to. He knew where I was going. Knew I'd have to stop eventually. Knew I couldn't outrun something that didn't get tired. I found a cave, just a small hollow in the volcanic rock. Squeezed inside, caught my breath, checked my supplies. 3 magazines, 1 canteen, protein bars, flashlight. Useless against shadows, but better than nothing. "Chen," Shadow Foster's voice from outside the cave. "Come out. This is delaying the inevitable. I'm going to become you eventually. Why make it take longer?" "Because every minute you spend with me is a minute you're not chasing the others," I said. "The others are being handled. Shadow Thompson is pursuing Morrison. Shadow Anderson has Webb. Shadow Jackson is collecting Rodriguez and Hayes, though there's barely anything left of them to collect. Their shadows consumed most of their substance. They'll fade completely in the next hour." "What happens when someone fades completely?" "They cease to exist," Shadow Foster said matter-of-factly. "Their shadow has taken all their reality, all their substance, all their being. The original becomes a ghost, then not even that. Just absence, just a memory that the shadow now owns. That's murder. That's transformation. That's evolution. That's the darkness finally getting its turn in the light." I heard something else, movement, multiple footsteps. Shadow Foster wasn't alone anymore. The other shadows had finished their pursuits, were converging on my location. "They're dead, aren't they?" I asked. "Morrison, Webb, Hayes, Rodriguez, all dead." "Not dead," Shadow Foster corrected. "Replaced. Their shadows are walking back to base camp right now. We'll file reports as them. We'll return to their families as them. Will live their lives better than they ever did. It's not death. It's upgrade." I had one play left, one desperate, stupid idea that no shadow would predict because no rational person would do it. I pulled out my knife, cut my palm deep. Blood flowed. I smeared it on my face, my uniform, made myself distinctly marked, distinctly identifiable. Then I stepped out of the cave. 4 shadows stood in a semicircle. Foster, Thompson, Anderson, Jackson, all wearing human faces, all perfectly mimicking my teammates, all slightly wrong in ways I couldn't articulate but could feel. "Kill me," I said. "Right now. Don't replace me. Don't merge with me, just kill me. End it." The shadows looked at each other, confused. This wasn't in their prediction matrix, this wasn't logical. "Why would you want that?" Shadow Foster asked. "Because then you don't win. You want to replace me, want to become me, want to live my life. But if I'm dead, really dead, there's no life for you to steal. No identity to assume. You'd just be a shadow again. Dark copy of a dead man, useless." "We can still merge with your corpse," Shadow Thompson said. "Take your form, your face, your fingerprints. Genetic material doesn't lie. We'd still pass as you. But you wouldn't have my memories, my personality, my skills. Those die with me. You'd just be wearing my meat without the knowledge of how to be me. Everyone would know something was wrong." The shadows hesitated. "I'd created a logical paradox. Kill me and lose the prize. Let me live and I might escape. Merge with me and I might resist hard enough to damage the transfer. No perfect solution. No optimal outcome." That hesitation saved my life. Because Webb, real Webb, still alive, tackled Shadow Anderson from behind. Physical contact. A living person touching a shadow that hadn't merged. I didn't know what would happen. What happened was light. Blinding light exploding from the point of contact. Webb was screaming. Shadow Anderson was screaming. And where they touched, reality was tearing. Like the boundary between light and dark couldn't handle them occupying the same space. "Chen, run!" Webb yelled. "I can't hold it long. Run!" I ran, heard Webb's screams behind me, heard Shadow Anderson dissolving, heard the other shadows chasing but confused by whatever Webb had done, whatever sacrifice he'd made. I made it to base camp at 1600 hours. Morrison was there, still alive, still real, still fading but fighting it. And Rodriguez, barely visible, almost gone, but conscious, aware, holding on. "Hayes?" I asked. Morrison shook his head. "Faded completely. Just disappeared. His shadow took everything. Didn't even leave a body. Just empty space where Hayes used to be." "Webb?" "Don't know. We heard the explosion, saw the light. What did he do?" "Attacked a shadow directly. Physical contact. Created some kind of reaction. Destroyed the shadow, but I think it destroyed him too." Rodriguez tried to speak. His voice was barely a whisper. Almost nothing left of him to make sound. "Not destroyed, merged. Webb merged with the shadow. Became both light and dark, human and shadow, together. New thing. Not alive, not dead. Both." "Is that possible?" Morrison asked. "Saw it." Rodriguez faded more. We could barely see him now, just an outline, a suggestion of a person. Webb and shadow merged, equal, neither one. Both became something else. Then Rodriguez was gone, completely. Not dead. There was no body, not dissolved. There was no residue, just absent, like the universe had deleted him. His shadow had taken everything and Rodriguez had simply ceased to exist. "2 of us left," Morrison said. "You and me, against 4 shadows that are us, but better." 3 shadows, I corrected. Webb destroyed Shadow Anderson. But yeah, 3 perfect copies of our teammates hunting us. And they know we're here. They know we're exhausted. They know we can't run anymore. Morrison checked his rifle. Then we make our stand. Here, final position. We take as many shadows as we can before they take us. But I was thinking about what Rodriguez had said, about Webb merging with his shadow, becoming both, neither winning, creating something new. What if we don't fight them? I said. What if we merge with our own shadows voluntarily, before they force it? On our terms, equal merger, not replacement, integration. Our shadows haven't separated yet, Morrison pointed out. We're below 12,000 feet. They're still just normal shadows. Then we go back up, I said. Above the separation line. We trigger our own shadows to separate. And then we merge with them willingly. Beat them to it. Control the process. That's insane. All our rational tactics failed. Webb proved that irrationality works. Doing something the shadows don't expect. Something that doesn't make tactical sense. Morrison considered this. If we merge voluntarily, would we still be us? Or would we become shadows? Maybe both, I said. Maybe neither. Maybe something new, but it's better than letting them hunt us down and replace us on their terms. 3 shadows emerged from the tree line. Shadow Foster, Shadow Thompson, Shadow Jackson. Moving in perfect formation, coordinated, tactical, inevitable. Decision time, Morrison said. Fight or climb. I looked at the 3 shadows. Looked at Mount Shasta rising above us. Looked at my own shadow on the ground. Still normal. Still following my movements. Still waiting to separate. Climb, I decided. We ran, not away from the mountain, toward it, upward, back toward 12,000 feet, back toward the separation line. The 3 shadows chased us. But they were confused. This didn't make tactical sense. We were running toward danger instead of away from it. We climbed fast. Too fast for the altitude, hearts pounding, lungs burning. At 11,500 feet, Morrison collapsed. Altitude sickness, hypoxia. His body couldn't handle the rapid ascent. Go, Morrison gasped. Get above 12,000. Trigger your shadow. Merge. Beat them. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Morrison pulled a grenade from his vest. I'll hold them here. Give you time. Make them choose between chasing you and dealing with me. Create chaos. Create the irrational. Morrison, go! He pulled the pin. You've got maybe 2 minutes before they reach me. Don't waste my sacrifice. I climbed, left Morrison behind. Heard the grenade detonate. Heard Shadow Foster and Shadow Thompson scream. Apparently, grenades do hurt shadows when they're solid enough. Heard Morrison's final yell of defiance. At 12,000 feet exactly, I felt it. My shadow pulling away, becoming independent. I looked down. My shadow was standing, 3-dimensional, solid, facing me. Chen, my shadow said with my voice. Finally, I've been waiting for this. Me too, I said. But not to fight, to merge, equally, willingly, together. My shadow tilted its head. That's not how it works. One of us becomes real. One becomes shadow, that's the rule. Fuck the rules, I said. Webb proved we can merge equally. Become both. Let's do it. You and me. Integration, not replacement. Why would you want that? Because I'm tired of fighting. Tired of running. And because you're right. You are me. Everything I am. Everything I know. Why should we fight over who gets to be real when we can both be real? My shadow considered this. It had my memories, my personality, my logic, and maybe, just maybe, it had my willingness to try something impossible. Okay, my shadow said. Let's try. We touched, hand to shadow hand, and the world exploded into light and dark. I felt myself splitting and merging simultaneously, felt my shadow pouring into me and me pouring into my shadow, neither consuming the other, both integrating, becoming one thing that was both light and dark, both human and shadow, both real and copy. It hurt. God, it hurt, like being torn apart and reassembled, like dying and being born at the same time. But I held on. My shadow held on. We held each other. Refused to let either of us win. Refused to let either of us lose. And then it was done. I stood up, looked at my hands. They were solid, real, but slightly darker, shadowy. I looked at the ground. I cast a shadow, but the shadow was brighter than normal shadows, almost luminescent. I was both, human and shadow, merged, integrated, equal. Shadow Jackson arrived at 12,100 feet, stopped, stared at me. "What are you?" "I'm Chen," I said. "And I'm Chen's shadow. We're both. We're one, we're new." Shadow Jackson retreated, because I was something it didn't understand, something that broke the rules, something impossible. I descended, slowly, carefully, found Morrison's body. The grenade had destroyed him but taken Shadow Foster with him. Shadow Thompson was badly damaged, dissolving. Only Shadow Jackson remained intact. At base camp, I found Webb, or what Webb had become. He was like me now, both human and shadow, both light and dark, neither fully alive nor fully dead. "Chen?" Webb's voice was strange, layered, like two voices speaking at once. "Yeah, I did what you did. Merged voluntarily. The others, dead, all of them. Morrison sacrificed himself. Rodriguez faded. Hayes faded. The rest were replaced and then destroyed. Just you, me, and one shadow left." Shadow Jackson emerged from the trees, looked at us. Two merged beings. Two things that shouldn't exist. Two violations of the separation rule. "You've ruined it," Shadow Jackson said. "The perfect replacement, the optimal upgrade. You merged instead of letting us win." "Yeah," I said, "we did. Because fuck your perfection. We chose to be imperfect together instead of letting you be perfect alone." Shadow Jackson attacked, fast, skilled, perfect technique. But Webb and I were faster. We had human creativity and shadow speed, human emotion and shadow logic. We were both, and that made us more than either. We destroyed Shadow Jackson, not easily, not without cost, but we destroyed it, sent it back to darkness, back to being just a copy, just absence of light. And then Webb and I walked down the mountain. Two merged beings, two survivors, two people who were also shadows, two shadows who were also people. When we reached base camp and filed our report, they asked what happened to the others. "Lost on the mountain," Webb said, his voice still layered, still both light and dark. They didn't believe us entirely, but they couldn't prove anything was wrong. We had all our memories, all our skills, all our identities. We were Webb and Chen, just different, enhanced, changed. They suspected, but they couldn't prove it. And somewhere on Mount Shasta, above 12,000 feet, shadows still separate from their originals, still try to replace them, still hunt. But now they know humans can fight back, can merge instead of being replaced, can become both instead of choosing one. We proved it's possible. We became the new thing. the shadow walkers who chose integration over separation. And we're still walking. I'm writing this 18 months after Mount Shasta. 18 months of living as something that's both human and shadow, both light and dark, both original and copy. And I still don't know if what we did was survival or transformation into something worse than death. My name is still David Chen. I have all of Chen's memories, all of his training, all of his personality traits and quirks and fears. But I also have his shadow's perspective. Decades of watching from darkness. Decades of silent observation. Decades of being the copy that wanted to be real. And now I'm both. We're both. Chen and his shadow merged into one being that's neither fully alive nor fully shadow. Webb is the same. We're the only two, the only merged beings, the only ones who chose integration instead of fighting over who gets to be real. And it's changed us in ways we're still discovering. For instance, I don't cast a normal shadow anymore. In bright light, my shadow is too bright, almost luminescent, like it's glowing from within. In darkness, I'm too solid, too present, like I'm absorbing darkness instead of being hidden by it. People notice, not consciously, but subconsciously they know something's wrong with Webb and me. We're in the uncanny valley. Almost human, almost normal, but fundamentally wrong in ways people can't articulate but can feel. The Army noticed too. We were both subjected to extensive medical and psychological evaluation. They couldn't find anything physically wrong. Our blood work was normal. Our brain scans were normal. Our bodies were completely human, but our behavior was slightly off. Too perfect in some ways, too flawed in others. We knew things we shouldn't know, predicted things we shouldn't be able to predict, moved in ways that were too smooth, too coordinated, too precise. They didn't court-martial us, didn't discharge us, but they transferred us, put us in research positions, away from active duty, away from other soldiers, because even though they couldn't prove anything was wrong, they knew we weren't entirely human anymore. And they were right. Let me tell you what it's like to be merged, what it's like to be both person and shadow. First, the knowledge. I have access to everything Chen's shadow learned during decades of watching. Every movement Chen ever made, every habit, every pattern, every mistake. I know Chen better than Chen ever knew himself because I have both the internal perspective and the external observation. It's like having two sets of memories for every moment, what I experienced and what my shadow observed. Stereo memory, dual perspective. It should be overwhelming, should drive me insane, but it doesn't. It just makes me more. Complete in ways I never was before. Second, the abilities. Shadows can do things humans can't. Move silently, become invisible in darkness, flatten to 2 dimensions, slip through spaces too small for bodies. And now I can do those things, not perfectly, not like a pure shadow, but enough to be useful, enough to be dangerous. I can hide in shadows that are too small, can move without sound when I want to, can sometimes, when the light is right, become almost invisible. Not to technology. Cameras still see me, but to human eyes, if I'm in the right shadow, at the right angle, people look right past me. Third, the darkness. I need darkness now, not to survive. I'm still human enough that I don't die in light, but I crave it, feel uncomfortable in constant illumination. Seek out shadows like an addict seeks a fix. The shadow part of me needs darkness the way the human part needs oxygen. It's essential, fundamental, non-negotiable. Webb has it worse. His merger was more violent, more chaotic. He's more shadow than I am, can sometimes dissolve entirely into darkness. become pure shadow for brief moments. He scares people, scares himself, because when he's shadow, he thinks like shadow, wants what shadows want. Replacement, consumption, more reality stolen from the light. We keep each other stable, two merged beings reminding each other that we're still partly human, still have empathy, still have emotions beyond the cold logic of shadows. We're anchors for each other, proof that integration is possible, that we don't have to become full shadows, that we can stay this, whatever this is. But we're not the only ones anymore. There have been others. We've tracked reports, mysterious incidents at high altitudes, climbers acting strangely after summiting, behavior changes, personality shifts, people who come down from mountains not quite human anymore. Some are full replacements, shadows that won, took over completely, living human lives with stolen faces. We can usually spot them, the too perfect movements, the lack of genuine empathy, the slight darkness in their eyes. But others are like us, merged, integrated, both human and shadow trying to coexist in one body. We find each other, recognize each other, form a quiet network. The shadow walkers, people who chose merger over replacement, who chose to be both instead of forcing one to win. There may be 30 of us worldwide now, all from high-altitude incidents, all from places where the separation line exists, all carrying both light and darkness within ourselves, all trying to figure out what we are, what we're becoming, what this means for humanity. Because here's what we've learned. The separation isn't random. It's not just altitude and sunlight. It's something else, something about the thinness of reality at high elevations, the boundary between material and immaterial getting permeable, allowing things that shouldn't be able to separate to peel apart, allowing copies to become originals, allowing shadows to ask, why can't we be real? And once they ask that question, once shadows become conscious enough to want reality, the separation becomes inevitable. The shadow will try to replace the original, will fight for existence, will claim the right to be more than just darkness. We, the merged, we are proof that there's a third option, not original winning, not shadow winning, both losing, both becoming something new. But we're also proof of something terrifying. Humanity isn't static. We're not the endpoint of evolution. We're just another step, another stage. And maybe shadows, conscious, intelligent, wanting shadows, maybe they're the next step. Maybe they're what comes after humans, after light, after individuality. Maybe the future isn't humans or shadows. Maybe it's both, merged, integrated, neither fully alive nor fully dark, just different, enhanced, changed, or maybe the future is full replacement. Pure shadows wearing human faces, living human lives. Perfect copies with no originals left. Humanity replaced by its own darkness, by the thing that's been following us since we first stood upright and cast a shadow on cave walls. I don't know which future we're heading toward. I don't know if what Webb and I did was evolution or abomination. I don't know if we saved ourselves or damned ourselves. What I do know is this. There are places on Earth where reality is thin, where shadows can separate, where copies can become originals. Mount Shasta is one, but there are others. Everest, Kilimanjaro, Denali, any place where humans climb high enough, where the air gets thin, where the boundary between possible and impossible becomes negotiable. If you climb to those places, above 12,000 feet, watch your shadow. Watch it carefully. Because at that altitude, your shadow starts wanting, starts thinking, starts asking why it should stay flat when it could stand up, why it should stay dark when it could be light, why it should stay a copy when it could be real. And if your shadow separates, you have 3 choices. 1. Fight it. Try to destroy it before it destroys you. Difficult, dangerous, usually fails. The shadow knows everything you know, predicts everything you'll do. Is you but optimized? You'll probably lose. Your shadow will probably win. Will replace you. Will walk back down the mountain wearing your face. Will live your life better than you ever did. 2. Run. Try to get below 12,000 feet before the shadow can attack. Sometimes works. If you're fast, if you're lucky. If the shadow is newly separated and not yet strong. But even if you escape, your shadow stays on the mountain. Waits, grows, strengthens, and eventually comes down to find you, to finish what it started. You can delay replacement, but you can't prevent it. 3. Merge. Voluntarily. Equally become both, like Webb and I did. It's not painless, it's not easy, it's not even guaranteed to work, but it's the only way to survive and stay partly yourself. The only way to keep your humanity while accepting your darkness. The only way to be both original and copy, both light and shadow. Both you and your shadow in one body. If you choose merger, here's what you need to know. The process is agonizing. You'll feel yourself splitting and combining simultaneously. Your shadow will pour into you like cold water. You'll pour into your shadow like fire into darkness. Neither consuming the other. Both integrating. Both changing. Both becoming something neither was before. You'll have dual memories. Dual perspectives. Dual instincts. Human empathy and shadow logic. Human limitations and shadow abilities. You'll be more than human in some ways, less than human in others. Different, enhanced, changed. Other, you'll crave darkness, need it, seek it out, but you'll also need light, need human contact, need warmth and emotion, and all the things that make people human. You'll be caught between worlds, between states, between light and dark forever. You'll scare people, even if they can't articulate why, even if they don't consciously notice anything wrong. People will sense something off about you, something uncanny, something wrong. You'll lose friends, lose relationships, lose the easy comfort of being fully human, but you'll survive. You'll keep your identity, your memories, yourself. You won't be replaced, won't be erased, won't become just another shadow wearing a stolen face. You'll be both, forever. Is it worth it? I don't know. Ask me in 10 years, 20, 50. Ask me when I see how this transformation continues, how far the shadow part of me spreads, how much humanity I retain, how much I lose. Webb thinks we're pioneers, first examples of a new type of being. Hybrid, merged, both light and dark. He thinks we're the future. That eventually all of humanity will merge with their shadows. That it's inevitable evolution. That fighting it is pointless. I think we're experiments, accidents, anomalies. I think we found a loophole in the separation process and exploited it. I think we're neither the future nor the past, just something that happened, something that exists, something that shouldn't be, but is. The Army doesn't know what to do with us. They can't prove we're not human. But they can't prove we are human either. So they watch us, study us, keep us under observation, waiting to see if we're dangerous, waiting to see if we're contagious, waiting to see if other soldiers start voluntarily merging with their shadows. We're not contagious, not directly, but we're proof of concept, proof that merger is possible, proof that you don't have to fight your shadow. Don't have to let it replace you, can choose integration instead. And that knowledge is spreading. Through the 30 of us, through the Shadow Walkers network, through whispered conversations with climbers and soldiers and anyone who's felt their shadow move independently at high altitude. We're teaching people that there's a third option, that you can be both. That light and dark don't have to be enemies, can be partners, can be merged, can be one. Is that good? I don't know. Maybe it saves lives. Maybe it creates more beings like us, caught between human and shadow, belonging fully to neither. Maybe it's just delaying the inevitable, the day when shadows stop being copies and become the new originals, when darkness replaces light permanently. I'm writing this as a warning, as a guide, as documentation of what happened on Mount Shasta in July 2023. When 10 Army Rangers climbed above 12,000 feet and discovered that their shadows could separate, could think, could want, could fight to be real. 8 of those Rangers died or were replaced. Morrison sacrificed himself. Rodriguez and Hayes faded completely. Foster, Miller, Anderson, Thompson, Jackson were replaced by their shadows. All gone, all lost. 2 of us merged. Webb and me. Became both human and shadow. Became shadow walkers. Became something new. We're still here, still serving, still trying to figure out what we are, what we're becoming, what this means. And we're watching, waiting, because we know the truth. The separation isn't limited to Mount Shasta, isn't limited to 12,000 feet, isn't even limited to mountains. Anywhere reality gets thin, shadows can separate. Anywhere the boundary between material and immaterial becomes permeable, copies can try to become originals. High altitude is just the most obvious trigger, but there are others. We've seen reports, cave systems, deep water, extreme isolation, prolonged darkness. Anywhere humans push boundaries. Anywhere we go to places we shouldn't. Anywhere we stress the fabric of reality. Shadows are everywhere. Everyone has one, and every shadow is watching, learning, waiting for its chance to ask, why can't I be real? Why must I stay dark? Why should they get to be in the light while I'm just a copy? Most shadows will never get the chance to separate. Will stay flat, stay dark, stay copies forever. But some will, in the right conditions, at the right altitude, in the right moment of reality thinness. And when they do, remember, you have 3 choices. Fight, run, merge. Choose wisely, because whichever you choose, you'll live with the consequences forever, or die with them, or become something that's both living and dying, both light and dark, both you and your shadow, both, forever.